Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in and welcome to my channel Elevate the Soul. Today I'm going to be talking about the Torah portion, and our weekly Torah portion for this week is Parshat Noach. I'm going to be covering the Zera Shimshon, I'm going to be covering Rashi and the Midrash. And before we learn the series, there's a special before and after prayer. I am learning Leilu Nishmat, the Mechaber of the Sefer Rabbeinu Shimshon Chaim ben Rab Nachman Michael. May it be your will, Ribono Shel Olam, that the words he wrote in the introduction to a Sefer come true in the three categories he mentioned: children, health, and Parnasa. This week's Parsha is also sponsored and dedicated to the following people for the following categories: in health, wealth, happiness, salvation, inner peace, serenity, mental health, zivug, proper and healthy upbringing of children, inner strength, and growth in Torah. And these are the names: צביקה בן אסתר, רבקה ליאת בת מרים, לאה ברכה בת רבקה ליאת, יעקב ישראל בן רבקה ליאת, אסתר בת מרגלית, מרים בת שרה, יהודה אריה בן אסתר, ניסים בן מרים, שמואל בן אסתר, קרן בת מרים, תהילה בת קרן, בתיה בת קרן, רזל בת רוחל, רנן לב בן רזל, שרל בן רונית, רפאל חיים ben Rachel, and our sponsor asked to remain anonymous, so I'll be silent for a few minutes to have them in mind. And this class is also in memory of Leilu Nishmat Nachman Tzvi ben Chaya, Margalit bat Zion, Sarah bat Rachel, Aaron ben Miriam, Eliyahu ben Nachman Tzvi, Miriam bat Esther, Zachariah ben Adizi, Shmuel ben Miriam, Rafael ben Yehuda Leib, Leah Tamima bat Reuven, Rabbi Reuven Tzvi Bauman ben Esther Bela, and Rabbi Azar from Neve Yerushalayim, Yosef Tzvi ben Yaakov. So let's jump right in. And I'm going to be starting with the book Zera Shimshon. This is going to be book number 2. And, okay, in Parshat Noach. The reason Noach didn't daven for others to be saved. Chazal informs us that Noach opted out not to daven for the people of his generation. The question is, why? Zera Shimshon quotes the Midrash to provide a possible reason. The Midrash states Hashem controls his anger against every type of sin except immorality. And that's located in Bereshit Rabbah 26:10. The main reason for prayer is to remind Hashem to have mercy, even after a person has sinned beyond Hashem's limits for patience and tolerance. But when the sin is one for which Hashem has no mercy, then there is no place for prayer. This was especially true for Noach's generation, which was also guilty of overt thievery, and in addition to the terrible immorality that was prevalent in their lives. When it comes to sins between man and his fellow man, Hashem has no tolerance. And Noach therefore felt that davening for them would be of no help at all. So with this, we learn that we need to daven for others in order to change decrees. There's a phrase that's saying, when you pray for someone else's well-being, because you're praying for someone else and you're putting yourself last in a way, Hashem finds that very special and very unique, and you get answered first. Whoever prays for their friends gets answered first. And we learn this from Parashat Noach, because Noach failed to pray for the generation of the flood. And that is why the whole world was wiped out. He only thought about himself and his family. But when do we see the biggest blessings that Hashem gives us? When we daven for others. When we are considerate about other people and their situations or their environment. And no matter what type of sins a person can do, if it's between man and God, God has room to forgive. But if it's between a man and a man, between a fellow brother to a brother, Hashem doesn't interfere with that. So how do we fix it? That's one of the things why on Yom Kippur we need to go to our fellow Jew and ask for forgiveness. Because if we're not capable of forgiving ourselves and forgiving other people, we're showing Hashem that we're not worthy to be forgiven for sins that are also between us and Him. So if we want to be forgiven for sins that are between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, us and God, we have to learn to forgive other people, and we also have to learn to forgive ourselves. And now I'm going to get into the little Midrash, and over here I'm going to be talking about two things. I'm going to be talking about the sign of the rainbow, and I'm going to be talking about the curse of Canaan. So Noach asked Hashem never to send another Mabul upon the world. Hashem promised him, I will never again bring a flood of water to destroy the whole world. So I wanted to look into that real quick before I continue what it says here. He says, I will never bring a flood of water to destroy the whole world. There's two things I want to point out. The first thing is the destruction of the world by flood of water. And the second thing I want to point out is to destroy the whole world. What this basically says right here is that a flood to cover the whole earth and swallow it whole in one time is not going to happen again. But he didn't promise that he won't wipe out a city with water or that kind of destruction. Another thing that was noted in the Rashi as well was that Hashem is not going to destroy the whole world at one time. He's not going to do it like he did in, this week's Parsha. It will be in stages, like a cleansing. And one of the things that's also being discussed is why water? What does water symbolize? What does water signify? What is so important about water? Well, water comes from heaven and it comes from the earth. And it's the symbolism of water is purity. When we want to take our dishes and we want to make them kosher, what do? We toivel them in the mikveh. And then what does the mikveh have? It has water. Same thing with women when once a month with a family of purity and they go to the mikveh, it's water. So water purifies. So Hashem wanted to purify the whole world at one time because everything was just so bad. But he promised that it's not going to happen again, which is a good thing for us because now we know it's not going to get to that point where Hashem is going to have to get so mad. So I'm going to continue on over here. As a sign of my promise, my rainbow will appear in the clouds from time to time. It will show you that I remember never to bring another mabul. Therefore, whenever we see a rainbow, we say a blessing, which is Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, zocher habrit, ne'eman babrito, v'kayam b'ma'amaro. And the English translation of that is, Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the world, who remembers the treaty not to destroy the world with a mabul, who is faithful in his treaty and who keeps his word. Hashem is giving us an example of how we need to keep our word. We need to constantly, when we say, yes, I promise I'm going to do this, sometimes we give like a certain token of guarantee, that we're giving our word. And when we do that, we're more likely to keep our word than not keep our word. Another topic I'm going to be getting into in the Midrash is Noach becomes drunk and he curses his grandson Canaan. Now this is very, very, very interesting. I'm going to read it, and then I'm probably going to get into the Rashi when it comes to the curse of Canaan. After Noach left the ark, he felt it was his responsibility to work the earth. One of the first things that Noach did was he built a grapevine. He planted a grapevine. And when the grapes became ripe, he squeezed them and tasted the wine. But unfortunately, he drank too much. And when Noach became drunk, he was laying on the floor of his tent. His grandson Canaan walked in and saw Noach's condition. Canaan ran out and told his father, Ham, laughingly, "Do you know that grandfather lies drunk on the floor, and he is uncovered?" Noach's son also laughed and went to inform his two brothers about it. As soon as Shem heard about it, he said, "Let's cover our father." He brought a blanket and ordered his brother Yefet to carry it together with him to Noach's tent. They both turned their faces away so as not to see their father uncovered. When Noach woke up from his drunkenness, he cursed his grandson Canaan. He gave a blessing to Shem and Yefet, who had honored their father. Everybody sometimes makes a mistake, even a parent, but a child nevertheless has to honor his parent and behave respectfully towards them. Oh, sorry, my camera moved a little bit. This is pretty intense. Why would Noach curse his grandson just because he walked in? Noach was uncovered completely. This shows us how no matter what condition we are in, no matter the situation, we have to respect our bodies. We have to do our best to respect our bodies. And not only that, when you go into the Zohar interpretation of when your eyes look at something that's naked, more specifically a human being, it puts a stain on the neshama. That's why even when we are in our room, we have to be as modest as possible when, a person gets dressed or, undressed or, whatever it is. Relationship between man and a woman, if possible, to be as much as under the covers and not, exposed. For the fact that Noach did not keep this in mind, and his grandson walked in, and his grandson made fun of him, as well as his son, he got really mad, to the point where the curse that came out of Noach's mouth was pretty bad. And I'm going to get into that with Rashi. And what's even more disturbing, it didn't even bother Ham, and it didn't even bother his child, Canaan. So let's go ahead and look into what the Rashi has to say. So now we're going to be moving on to the Rashi. The verse goes like this: "Cursed is Canaan, a slave of slaves shall he be to his brothers." So Rashi goes ahead and explains, Arul Canaan, cursed is Canaan. Ham sinned and Canaan is cursed. Rabbi Yehuda explains that God has already blessed Noach and his sons, and there cannot be a curse where a blessing had been given. Therefore, Noach cursed his grandson, who was noted as above, and was deeply involved in the humiliating incident. When Rabbi Nehemiah follows the views cited above that Canaan bore responsibility because he instigated the tragedy, Noach foresaw that Canaan's descendants would always be wicked and morally degraded. Thus, we find the patriarchs scrupulously avoiding the marriage with the accursed Canaanites. The next section goes to Eved Avadim, a slave of slaves. The phrase is meant literally. The Canaanites would be enslaved even by people who are themselves subjugated. Or is it a figure of speech, meaning that they would be the lowliest of slaves? Indisputably, many descendants of Shem and Yefet too have also been sold into slavery, while not every Canaanite is or was a slave. The curse is that from birth the Canaanites will be steeped into the culture of slavery and not seriously desire freedom. The descendants of Shem and Yafet, however, will have a nobler spirit, and they will always crave freedom, even if they are enslaved. I know that it's written somewhere where it states where Ham and the Canaanites were living, residual, but I can't find that right now. Hopefully I'll be able to post that up in my comments later as soon as I find it. But that concludes our Torah lesson for this week in Parashat Noach. So I'm going to do the closing of being thankful to God for everything that He's given. I'm going to be reading Tefillah L'Todah, the prayer of thanks. Thank you, Hashem, King of Kings and Master of the world. Thank you for the infinite times you helped me, supported me, rescued me, encouraged me, cured me, guarded me over, and made me happy. Thank you for always being with me. Thank you for giving me the strength to observe your commandments, to do good deeds, and pray. Thank you for all the times you helped me, and I didn't know how to say thank you. Thank you for all the loving kindness you do for me each and every moment. Thank you for every breath that I breathe. Thank you, Hashem, for all of the things that I do have. And thank you, Hashem, even for the things that I don't have. Thank you for the periodic difficulties, my occasional setbacks, and for the times when I don't feel happy, because everything is for my ultimate benefit, even if I don't see that it always is for my best. Deep in my heart, I know that everything comes from you and is the very best for me, and designed especially for me, in precision and exacting divine providence, of which only the King of Kings is capable of. Thank you for the periodic times that are difficult for me, for only that way they enable me to fully appreciate the good times, for only after being in darkness one can appreciate the light. Thank you for the wonderful life you've given me. Thank you for every little thing that I have, for everything comes from you and from no one else. Thank you for always listening to my prayers. Creator of the world, I apologize from the bottom of my heart for all of the times that I didn't appreciate what you gave me, and instead of thanking you, I only complained. I am dust and ashes, and you are the entire universe. Please don't ever cast me away. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. Hopefully, I'll see you next week. Have a good one, and Shabbat Shalom.